All right, welcome to this week's ToaD Learning Camp. And today we're just going to do a general travel Q&A. So I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions.
I do.
Yes, Kathy.
There are times where I would like to take a cruise by myself, but it's expensive. How do I get around the single supplement?
That's a tough one. Most cruise lines are going to charge you 200% for a single, or you can find a cruise ship that has studio cabins. Norwegian Cruise Line has those. They are all inside cabins, however, but Royal Caribbean and Celebrity both have outside ocean view, inside, and balconies, depending upon the ships. That definitely will help with the offsetting the single supplement. Now, some of the more luxury lines do have waiver or reduced single supplements on certain sailings. So if you're looking to cruise on Seabourn, or I know that AMA does it from time to time.
AMA didn't charge me full double.
Yeah, it's that was a special deal with the group. We had an arrangement so that the singles were not charged for a single supplement, but and some of the other river cruise lines will have certain sailings where they will waive the single supplement or reduce it down to 25% or less.
Or you can always call me Kathy.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Hey, Kathy, your sister lives in South Florida.
Hello, two free friends.
I'm sure that you would not have a problem finding someone. It's if you want to get away from them that you think about it.
There was also, I posted on the Travel on a Dream page, there was a cruise line, a river cruise line that has specific single cruises that did not charge an extra cruise. And I can't remember the name of it. It was a cruise line I hadn't heard of, but they did not have single supplements.
I think it's Riviera.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, Riviera is one. And we've just started doing business with them. Another one that I thought of, if you don't mind having a roommate that you don't know and you're willing to take a shot, and I didn't think that was an option, but there is a company that we work with that's called Single Cruises. And what they will do is you sign up and they will match you with a roommate. If they cannot get you a roommate, then you get the single room with no single supplement. But and I've known people who have done that cruise line and they were okay with it, but I don't know, it just depends upon the individual if it's something that you'd be interested in or not.
I think AMA's doing one with Samantha Brown.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a fun cruise with Samantha Brown.
That would
Yeah,
be
it would.
Samantha Brown.
Maybe she'll remember when she met me. Probably not. I'll have to bring the picture with. Remember me? Anybody else have a question?
What about what?
Go ahead, Tanya.
I was just going to ask about if in the last week or so, have there been any updates on COVID testing for flights and cruises? Has that been any new announcements?
There hasn't been a lot of brand new announcements. So one thing that CLIA did come out and saying, CLIA is the Cruise Line International Association. They're the advisory organization over pretty much most of the cruise lines, especially all those operating out of the United States. And they said that there will be 100% testing when the cruises resume. But as far as anybody setting up anything, I know that Hawaiian Airlines is working on with certain airports. I think San Francisco is one where they'll do testing before you get on the plane. And there's a couple others. There's some airports, especially quite a few of them in Europe, that are starting to do testing at the airport. Lufthansa is definitely adding testing before all of their flights.
Yeah.
But that's about it. I don't know how things that have transpired over the last week are going to change their view of the rapid testing. I know with like flying to Tahiti, they don't allow the rapid testing as one of the tests that you can take to go there. So it's got to be one of the PCR tests in order to qualify for that. So I'm not really sure how that's going to change. I imagine that it will in the near future. Karen, did you have a question?
Yeah, me and Kathy are bouncing around the Alaska cruise next summer about staying in Vancouver for a couple days post cruise. Where's the best place to stay? I mean, can you recommend some place? I mean, what area of town? I don't really know anything about Vancouver.
I like it real close to the Canada place. It's very walkable. They have a nice boardwalk all down the whole harbor. It's a little bit of a hike, but you can walk to Stanley Park from there. They've got good bus service in town. And if money isn't an object, the Pan Pacific is a wonderful place to stay. We stayed there before the last cruise, and though I did price it for the night after the cruise today, and Mr. Mullen thought he priced it, but he was looking at this week. And because he told me it was $229 a night. I'm like, no. No, it's over 500 a night, close to 600 a night. Or no, actually it was close to 500 a night for.
It's gone up more.
Yeah. I know we definitely got it considerably less than that when we did the last Alaska cruise. And from time to time, we do see lower prices on that. The Fairmont, if you can get a good price, either the waterfront or the one that's down the street from the waterfront, Pacific Rim, I think it is. Those are nice. Those are all 5-star resorts or hotels though, so they're going to be in that pricey range. But there's a few others that are really close to there too, that aren't very far to walk to. We stayed at the Westin once, and that was not too bad. We did take a taxi over there, but it was a cheap taxi ride, and we could walk down some of the main streets in there. You're still a little bit farther away from the harbor though. So there's a couple decent ones, and I'm trying to blank on the name right now of what it is, but there's a couple that are really good that are in a better price range, but you're probably looking, if you're going to stay near the harbor, at least 200 to 300 a night.
We did the hop on, hop off before the cruise last time. And it was a great way to just get around the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, got a great tour of Stanley Park. You got to go to, I can't remember the name of the island, with the food market kind of thing. And it was just a easy way to get around for, I thought, a fairly inexpensive way. I know Karen was there because we saw her that's where we first met.
Yeah, we were on the hop on hop off bus as well. And we mainly did it through Stanley Park.
Yeah, we walked.
over
We
to-
just walked.
We walked
everywhere.
to Stanley Park, and then we were dead tired when we got there. So we had our poutine and got a hop. First experience with that. We had cheese curds all the time, but who would ever put gravy on it? Todd, did you want to ask one of your questions?
Did he leave?
I'll let you ask it.
Which one? Can I ask one of your easy ones?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, what is a good age to take kids on a cruise? I say make sure they're potty trained. Make sure it is a cruise that has a good kids program. If you don't, the kids are going to be driving you crazy. Even if you think you want to spend a lot of time with them, you don't want to spend every waking moment with them. So I would definitely wait until they are old enough to get into the kids club. So usually by 3 for most cruise lines, and potty trained definitely, because they won't let them in if they're not. And I would also make sure that they're independent enough that they're willing to go to the kids club. We took a 9-year-old once, and he did not want to. He had a lot of FOMO, and he was like, no, my sister's doing that, I want to hang around with the adults. And so we couldn't go hang in the adult only areas because he didn't want to try out the kids club. It took 3 days before he finally did, and he loved it and wouldn't leave after that. So you just want to make sure that they feel comfortable enough to want to do those kind of activities. Todd also asked me best advice to sleep in a new city, and he didn't like my answer to that. I said drink a lot of alcohol. But I thought I'd take that a step further and talk about adjusting to jet lag. There's so many different ways to look at this, and it depends how far you're going and what you're doing. I typically try to adjust to the time zone as quickly as possible. If we're going to California, I'll stay up a lot later than my body really wants to, just so that I get on that time zone and force myself to sleep. But I've also started using melatonin, and that has helped adjust my sleep habits a lot. So Kathy,
Stay,
you do a lot of traveling.
stay hydrated. That is probably the best thing you can do. If you're flying, yeah, Bill. um, Go light on the alcohol, drink a tremendous amount of water, and as Tracy said, get onto your local time as quick as possible. Having traveled to Japan quite a number of times, you know, I get into Tokyo, it's maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I force myself to stay up till at least 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then go to bed. And I usually can get on local time pretty quick.
But 9:30, 10 o'clock there, what time is that for you at home?
I don't even think about it, Bill. I set my watch to local time, and that's what I go on.
Even if you don't believe it?
Uh, I've got to. I mean, I've got to go to work the next day or two.
To your point about drinking water too, that's something that I know I was asked, what do we do if we get sick out of the country? And I'll answer that in a second. But I found also if you don't stay hydrated when you're traveling, that's when you tend to get sick.
Yeah.
And so I know that the free drink packages are great deals, but I always try to still have a couple bottles of water before I go to bed, just to continually stay hydrated, because that will fight off a lot of things.
Yeah. Flying is awful. It's recirculated air, it's dry air, and that's why just keep yourself well hydrated.
And so back to what do we do if we get sick out of the country? That's always a challenge because it depends what you're getting sick with. I've had a client who got sick in Thailand and they wouldn't let her get on a plane. So she needed to figure out how to find a doctor and how to communicate that she needed to go to a doctor, and not speaking the language, that always is a challenge. The best thing I can say with that is if you do have travel insurance, depending upon how sick you are, I would definitely reach out to the travel insurance company right away. They always have somebody on staff that takes a call 24 hours a day. It's not the insurance company direct. They have a specific phone number that you can dial while you're traveling, and it's a fiduciary for them that will take care of anything you need. If you need a doctor, if you need to change your flight home, they'll take care of all those arrangements for you, and they'll be able to find you an appropriate place that they work with that they can get you to and get you some help. That was our best resource when my client got sick in Thailand. If I know that I personally have gotten sick in Barcelona, I had a cold and needed to get some antihistamines, and trying to figure out what you're looking for when you don't speak the language is a challenge. And so I would make sure that you're always bringing enough over-the-counter medication so that you can take care of any minor ailment. I always carry, whenever I'm traveling outside of the country, I always have Imodium with me, and antacids and ibuprofen, Tylenol, just about anything. I have a little kit that always goes, and every couple of years I throw away the old stuff that's no longer good and take something new. So that can help ward off any minor ailments.
I do the same thing, Tracy, traveling international. I've got my little goodie bag with, antihistamine, Imodium, aspirin, things like that. If I'm traveling for business, I'm usually at a corporate location. So if I need some help, somebody can come with me to the local drugstore and translate. But, when I'm traveling on my own, be prepared.
I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of packing some Mucinex. It's God's gift to Earth. So.
A funny story, when I was on my first cruise with my sister and mother, Debbie thought I was a little bit crazy in what I was bringing, because I had a long list of stuff, and it didn't take up much space, but I had a little bit of everything, including tweezers and fingernail clipper and all that. We were going for a 3-night cruise, and first night on the cruise, she gets a splinter in her finger. And I said, "Do you want to use my tweezers?" And she's, no, I don't need it. I don't need it. After another day and a half, she's like, "Give me the damn tweezers." She didn't want to admit that her sister knew what she was doing by bringing all this stuff. And
People always say I pack too much until they complain. They complain about it until they need something to pack.
Mhm.
So scissors, tweezers, medicine, you
Unless they
name
need
it.
to have the little thing pulled out of their ear.
Yes.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, on our last, we did an Asmar cruise, and it was a crossing trip to Europe, and it was 11 days, and we got sick. Janice and I got sick, and I was like, I've got the Mucinex, and it helped me survive until Brussels. And you spend all this money, you don't want to be sick, you at least want to enjoy some of it. So pack a little bit here and there.
Don't forget a bottle opener. Europe doesn't have twist-offs.
And definitely Rolaids or what's the
Tom,
other? Tums, because I remember on the Disney cruise, we had brunch at Remy and dinner at Palo, and I needed some Rolaids stat. It was way too much chocolate and fast food, rich food, and I had to spend $3 for a little pack of Rolaids. So pack some Rolaids.
mhm.
Well, yeah, you don't realize that you're going to be eating a lot different than you normally are, and how your body reacts to it, and going and eating local foods at some a call, and you just never know.
It goes without saying, and I think this group will understand it, but when you're traveling, especially outside the US, be very careful about the water that you drink. I know when I travel, I will only drink bottled water. And even brushing my teeth, I will have a bottle of water, Evian or something like that. It's ridiculous to spend, $4 or $5, on a bottle of water to brush your teeth, but you'd be surprised how sick you can get with something as simple as brushing your teeth.
That was something that really threw me when I went down to Peru, I was surprised when I got into the hotel and they had a bottle of water in the bathroom right next to the sink. I'm like, well, that's an odd place to put it. Why don't you have it out on the credenza or something? And they told us that day, yeah, don't, when you're washing in the shower, don't let water go into your mouth. Just, you don't want to, you
Yep.
know, consume it. Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
And bring tissues with you when you're traveling in some places. You just never know when you're gonna hit a porta potty or something that doesn't have any toilet paper. So having something with you is good.
How do you handle, I know in Asian countries, they just basically have a hole in the ground. How do you handle that? I've never done it. It sort of terrifies me to think about it. I don't have the knees of a 20-year-old anymore. So what do you do? I mean, you just deal with it? You bring your own toilet paper? For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
I always travel with a pack of tissues. Actually, in Tokyo, they give them out on the street corner because they're usually, advertisements. I've been very fortunate because I'm usually going to big cities, so I can always find a Western style toilet as opposed to a squatty potty. So, but yeah, that's pretty much
Okay.
ain't good.
I haven't run into that in my travels yet, but I know my aunt used to talk about that when she went to France years ago. Yeah.
It's difficult when you're traveling and you're wearing pants. It's much more easier if you're wearing a skirt or something like that. But most of the places, particularly in the few times Japan, I've always usually been in Tokyo. I've been a couple stopovers in China, but I've always found more of a Western style toilet, and it hasn't been that bad.
The other thing that is happening a little bit more than I've noticed in the past is some places you go and they have unisex bathrooms where they have individual stalls inside, but the sinks and stuff are all unisex. So that's a little, when you're not expecting it, it's a little interesting.
I did notice in my limited travels of Europe was that in like old town centers, bathrooms are limited and you do need some change, or
Yes.
at least €1 or so. And the bathrooms are clean, but yeah, you go when you can because you don't know when the next one's coming.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's what we noticed in Italy too. You needed to have change, and in Peru, I don't really remember us ever having to have change. I think at a couple places we did, and we were traveling with a tour company, and so that was part of what they provided for us, and they paid for us to go to the bathroom. But
I think we're a little spoiled in the US. It's just free bathrooms everywhere.
yeah,
So
Yep.
it's a little different in other parts of the world.
Always have a couple coins with you, a euro coin or whatever. I've encountered that too, especially when I'm traveling, going to places on the train. Most of the train stations, they've got the regular restroom, which is pretty nasty, and then they've got the pay restroom, which is typically €1, but they're well maintained, they're cleaned. There's always soap, there's always paper towel.
Unless you're a man, and parts of Europe have on-street urinals.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Oh,
It's like, okay,
that was
whatever.
in Belgium, we saw that. That was
Yeah. I was watching a TV show. Apparently they have some in France too. So
yeah.
yikes. The Anne Frank house had unisex restrooms. Stuttered the crap out of me when a guy came out of the stall, tell you that.
Like, did I?
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, I did a ship tour and ran into that on the ship, and it was a higher end line. It was Ponant Cruises. It's a French line, so it's not surprising when I thought about where I was. But used to being on so many different cruise ships and walk into the bathroom. I'm like, where's the bathroom? And they're like, oh, it's right there. And I'm like, wow, it's not even marked. How would you know that that's a bathroom? And when I walked out, there was a man in there with me. I'm like, oh, that's why it's marked as a women's room.
I guess this doesn't surprise me because I'm used to seeing it, particularly, going to the corporate offices in Germany, going out to dinner, and it's, there's one or two restrooms and it's, unisex.
Which only makes sense unless it's just a urinal. Who cares? There's
Yeah.
lots of times bathrooms, it's like at a gas station, there's men's and women's. It's like there's a line for the women's and nobody's in the men's, and it's the same as the women's. What's the difference? Unless if it's one stall, who cares?
Right.
Do your business. Although I have found that men are not quite as neat as women. So,
That is
so beware, women.
As somebody who used to clean toilets when I was going to college, I had 10 buildings and I had to manage people cleaning them. It can vary.
It's a different mess between men and women. Let's just say
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
the splatter,
Yeah.
but it's all over the place.
Karen?
Moving on from bowel movements and whatnot.
No, Tom,
Skinny legs.
another question that was posed to me is, what kind of precautions should you take when traveling versus your day-to-day life? And I would say that there really isn't a whole lot different that you're going to be concerned about. You should take cautions every time you're going anywhere. But one thing in particular is always be aware of where your passport is when you're traveling. And if you don't have to carry it on your person, lock it up in a safe. I always make sure that I have a colored photocopy of my passport with me so that I have a backup if I need it. I mean, obviously it's not going to be good, but it'll help me with the consulate to get another copy right away if at least I know what all my documents say. Another thing that I've seen people do is take a photo of it just as they're getting ready to go on vacation, so it's close to the beginning of their photos. They'll have a copy of their passport there and other important documents.
I've heard that some people will take a photo but have it in their email so that they can log in at the consulate and have it, because you need to log in to have it available. If it's on your home, desktop, it doesn't do you any good.
Right.
Or the file, or if they're missing your phone, if they steal your phone, you don't have it, but you can log onto your Gmail account.
Yeah.
So, and I know on our river cruise last year that somebody got their backpack got pickpocketed and got their thing. So you need to be careful. I've never come across a pickpocket in the US, but I'm not in a major city to be aware of, but certainly in Europe in a train station, you need to. But one tip I did have, because she got her driver's license stolen, I mentioned that you can actually order them online. So she had her driver's license when she got back to the US already there. So she'd already reordered it. So that's a tip.
Yeah. And you made me think of something else with that.
I mean, the obvious is before you travel, make sure you call your bank or whoever your credit card issuers are to let them know you're going to be traveling, where you're going. Also if you've got an ATM card, let your bank or your issuer know you're going to be traveling. I personally, if traveling, particularly out of the US, I clean out my wallet. I take the bare minimum. In most cases, I'm not even taking my driver's license. I'm not driving. I've got my passport with me. I do what Tracy just said. I've got a photo of it. It's on my Gmail account, and actually, because I'm traveling for work. My corporate travel group has a copy of it. Yeah.
That's what it was. You can always send your travel agent a
Yep.
copy as well. And so if something were to happen, we could get a copy wherever you are.
Mhm.
Of course, we're with you, then we'd have to download it. But if we're not with you, I've had that call before with someone who was on their way to the port and didn't have their passport with them. And I had a copy of it on file. So
Leave your itinerary with somebody, you know, so somebody knows where you're at. With your passport, make sure, the rule of thumb was always about 6 months. I think now it's more about a year. I was up in Boston getting on a flight to go to Japan, and they were not letting a guy on the flight because his passport, this was stupid of him, but his passport expired 2 weeks after he was supposed to come home. They would not allow him on the flight. So make sure you've always got about, at the bare minimum, 6 months. Typically, from where I work, they want a year.
Well,
yeah,
and that's really just for your own good.
Yeah,
Because if
absolutely.
you get somewhere, you get sick, you get thrown in a hospital,
Yeah.
um, it could run out by the time you need to get home.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it is actually a rule in some countries, not all countries, but some of them say you must have so many months left over. I think some are like 4 months, some are 6 months, some don't have a requirement. And when you're going, like the Bahamas does not have a requirement. And so if you're going on a weekend cruise to the Bahamas, if you're coming back into the United States, you're coming back into your own country. So it's not as big of a concern to have that full 6 months. But I think with everything going on in the world, I take a look at what happened earlier this year with COVID and people who went on a cruise that was supposed to be, a week or 2 long cruise, and now all of a sudden it's more than a month. If you don't have, and they were stopping at places that they wouldn't normally have stopped. And some of the concern, I know there was a cruise with Carnival where they had some issues with the cruise and they had to take most of the passengers back to the US because so many people did not have passports. So once they got off the ship in Mexico to end the cruise, they couldn't get home.
Yeah.
So we've also had clients that were on a cruise that caused a little bit of trouble and got kicked off the ship in a foreign country. And
Mm-hmm.
having that passport and having enough time on it is really crucial. I think there's 2 things that have come from this year. I think insurance is going to be pretty much a requirement when you go on a trip outside of the United States, and a passport, even if it's not required.
Yeah,
They told me when I went for my interview for Global Entry that I could come there to renew my passport and they would expedite it through there. And also I would add, I know a couple people that had their pockets picked in Europe. Always have a second credit card with you, or maybe even a third, but don't store them in the same place.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to that point, we were on our way down to Disney once, and the night that we left, there was some fraudulent activity on our card. They didn't tell us, but we went to go get the car rental and the charge declined. And we didn't really know what was going on. So luckily we had another card. You never know when something like that's going to happen. Even if you do let your credit card companies know you're going, if something happens that truly is fraud, they're going to put a lock on your card. So you definitely want to have a second option.
I was
And
just in
I know-
August.
Yeah.
There was $3,000 from Walmart.com on my debit card. So of course they canceled the card, which then meant I didn't have any pay if I hadn't had a regular credit card. Yeah, I usually just pay my gas and stuff. It was a road trip, so that, but at least I had an extra card to go with because they issued a new card, but I wouldn't have gotten until the next week. So
And I had the same issue when I went to Ireland. I put my ATM card into the bank to pull some euros out, and the ATM ate my debit card. And I'm like, oh my God, I was like, what am I going to do? I said, I can take cash advances on my credit card, but that's pricey. Thank God I used an ATM at the bank. I went into the bank and they were able to get my ATM card for me because I was like, I'm going to be stuck in Europe and having to do cash advances on a credit card, but I was able to get it out. But it kind of taught me always have a backup plan in case either your credit card gets stolen or there's fraudulent activity
Yep.
on it. And I got lucky at that point.
Yeah, I was about 3 hours from being picked up to hop on a flight to Europe and got a call from Chase Visa that there was fraudulent activity on my one card and they canceled it. I'm like, oh crap. But fortunately I had 2 other credit cards. So, because they, I had explained, look, I'm leaving, like, we can send it to the hotel, tell us where you're at. And I'm like, I'll wait till I get home. It'll be okay.
Yeah, the time that we were going to Disney, we had to have them overnight it to
Yeah.
our hotel because we were going to be getting on a 2-week cruise. And so I think I want to have my credit card when I'm on the cruise and
Yeah.
and the one that I want.
We've also had we get home and then somebody was charging gasoline in Florida every other week
Oh,
for like 2-3 weeks. They were filling up their gas tank and we're kind of wondering, we can't be in 2 places at once. So you got to watch them after you get back.
Yeah.
Skimmers are a real problem at the gas stations down here in Florida. And they do tell you go to a legitimate gas station. They're not going to, go to a bigger one where it's always busy and it's well lit. Don't go to one of those ones where it's just one pump and it's in a dark area because they're generally the ones that are going to have the skimmers on them.
mhm.
The only other question that I have is about domestic destinations. What's been popular this year? Really, the big thing that I found is people wanting to just do home rentals out in the country, out at the lake, out in the mountains, and also the national parks. The national parks have been, there's been a lot more call for them this year. And one of these years, we're going to plan a trip out to the national parks. I've had some requests for that. And we were actually in the process of looking into a group for maybe next summer. And then things kind of changed a little bit. So we'll have to push that one off a little bit more, but it's something that's in the works. But those are,
Karen, our for everybody
Mom.
watching this, Karen and I were sisters. Our mom, they and her partner, they did a 3-week
Yeah.
3-week cross-country trip, Route 66, and they had both said they were surprised at the amount of people traveling, especially, campers, because, it was the only thing you could probably safely do.
mhm. Any other questions? Well, if not, I'm going to then go ahead and stop the recording and next week we're going to be talking about Germany. Melissa, one of my agents, is going to be escorting a group to Germany for the Christmas markets next December, at late November, early December. And they're going to be going to see several castles and tour Berlin and start in Berlin and end in Munich. So Melissa and I will talk about that, but we'll also talk about just Germany in general at the same time. So thanks, everyone.